Go on then. Go on, man. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah. Yeah, in like the peak of everything, there were heaps of international NGOs that came with heaps of grants and stuff for projects. Were there lots of projects made that are sort of at a standstill now, that money's been invested and they're not being used? It's sort of like I've heard they've rented land for 5 years and they're not working here anymore. They've built big things for millions of dollars and it's just sitting there as it was, like a bit of a ghost town.
That was the biggest scandal, I think, and it is being investigated, I believe, because that was, and they didn't rent for 5 years in the end. They rented per year, because they've told us when they pulled out. This is the IRC. They pulled out completely last year, but they've kept the land for another year. They told us, so it would only be 2 years rent, 2015 to 16, 16 to 17. So I'm guessing some point later in 2017 the land is done. So we were under the impression they'd either bought the land or agreed a long-term rental.
Yeah.
But that whole enterprise, or whatever you want to call it, actually cost, I believe, 6 million.
Yeah.
It's just.
But I don't think the enterprise cost 6 million. They were given 6 million.
Yeah, whether they actually spent it, but
This is the IRC camp on the track.
They were given
towards
6 million.
I mean, if you, I'm not an expert, I'm not a surveyor, but just glancing my eye over that site there, I can't imagine that cost anything like 6 million.
There's a couple of wooden structures, there's toilets.
I'd say that looks more like 60,000, and even then I'd be thinking someone's having a laugh. You know, what have you spent 60 grand on here? So
you've
6
got
million
all the employees, because there was very few No, IRC actually do not they do not work with volunteers. There is no volunteers in the IRC. They are all employees.
Right.
The fleet of minibuses, which was how many? 8, 9 minibuses?
Yeah, they had 2.
All rented.
Yeah. The insurance for the minibuses. I mean, there was 2 insurances. It was the insurance.
But what was the purpose of the IRC camp that they built then? It was a camp.
IRC wanted to get a foothold in the north because they were it's a competition with the UNHCR. It was, in a way, funny, but actually quite dangerous what they were doing, because they even stole refugees from the UNHCR. It was very disturbed what was going on. So the IRC wanted their publicity and their foothold with the incoming refugees and everything else. And Molivos wouldn't let that happen in the town or anywhere sensible.
Yeah.
So in the end, they had full discussion with the mayors and the Foreas and all the organisations in Molivos, and they came up with that as a best case solution to keep the refugees away from Molivos and to give the IRC full control of the north of Lesbos.
I was told we don't want any volunteers, any NGOs here other than the IRC by a certain person in Molivos.
Actually, no, it's in one of their statements. It's an official statement. It's not even like hearsay.
We were told to go away. Everyone was told to go away because the IRC is running north coast of Lesbos.
So after whether or not perhaps the IRC have got 5,940,000 left in the bank still, but after having got £6 million and building that camp, was it ever used? I mean,
one night they put people in.
One
night, actually stayed the night, and it was 400 odd people. The other days, the people they were bringing in here on the beach, we were bringing the boats in here, and they were taking them up on the dirt track. They were photographing them in wet clothes and everything, and then they'd bring them back in the minibus and dump them at the restaurant at the bottom of our drive here, soaking wet clothes. So they were just taking them up there
to the camp,
photographing them, making them sign bits of paper, and they were coming back here dumped in wet clothes in the winter. This is January, February, March time. The camp actually opened in Boxing Day, didn't it?
Yeah, day after Christmas, so
2015 it opened, and it closed. The last people they had was April 2016.
Yeah, and officially they closed, I think, in June.
Yeah.
So how long was it open for?
That was it.
That was it. Well, it was 6 months it was open, but at that 6 months it was only like 3.5 months they actually had refugees staying there for an hour or so during the day or when the boats.
The dynamics
refugees
changed.
were accommodated up there then?
No. One night.
Just one night?
One night they stayed all night, yeah.
What you mean throughout the whole time,
Yeah.
they were taking people up there and they were staying one night, or it was just one group?
No, just one group, and one night they actually
Wow.
stayed. All the other time they took them up there and they brought them back here. They took them from here up there. And
So what was the purpose in IRC's jargon?
And they
then?
registered them there?
No,
No.
no registration allowed.
No.
So that was still Moria. So basically, it did the same thing as our stage 2 that we're still running
Yeah.
now. So it's a transit zone. So you take people in, you make sure they're healthy. This is what they were supposed to do: get them dry clothes, put them on a bus, and move them on to Moria. But building a camp there's rules regarding refugee camps. It's written in the UN laws,
Yeah.
everything else. So any NGO setting up a camp, the first rule is it has to be on a main highway or a main road.
Yeah.
So you need vehicle access. It's on a dirt road on the edge of over a load of cliffs, and they're driving people back at that stage from Molivos and Petra. They were picking them up from there, driving them backwards to the camp, keeping them for a few hours, and then driving them to Eftelu, moving them from one bus then to another bus, and then that bus would take them to Mytilene, to the camp to be registered.
I heard a story about one situation where a volunteer brought, I don't know, maybe it was 10, 12 refugees that had just been, like, completely wet. It was cold outside, raining, and there was an empty tent that, like, they had to stand in line before someone, and there was an IRC person there, and they didn't have the authority to let them in, and the volunteer was like, guys, it's an empty tent, I'm bringing these people in to sit under cover out of the rain, I do not care. And there was this big commotion where they just
they caused a lot of problems up here. One, because they got involved with these people that rule here. So there's a lot of money flying around for renting lands and things like this. But two, the people, when they said they were going to take over, they employed everyone from these towns, and a lot of them hate refugees. I mean, literally. Yeah. But they didn't know what to do. They didn't have, when you had all these volunteers out here that have been working in camps all over Europe, and, they've been clothing people, getting people dry, looking after people, rescuing boats and everything else. They didn't ask anyone. They just said, we're taking over, get away, and we're going to rule. But when they tried to do it, lucky it all fell apart because of certain things going on out here at the time.
But they never assisted with landings or anything. They would never assist anyone on the beach because they weren't insured to do that. So basically they're turning up with a bus, screaming at people, because some of them were so rude to the refugees, really screaming at them to get on the bus. They have to move quickly and things. To the extent we had people moved without their bags, we had families separated, all the things.
Yeah, I heard crazy stories
really
about
crazy.
kids getting separated from their mums
just
because
putting
of
them on a bus.
volunteers telling them, like, just bringing kids.
But there were people...
This whole situation here, all the things we're describing here, this is pretty much the case. I mean, it's to a certain extent, this is best case here. It's not as, if you get trapped up on the Hungarian-Serbian border, where they're setting they're setting dogs on you and
I've heard
beating you
hunters
and
as well going out
dreadful
shooting,
stuff going on. But this is best case scenario, and it's true all the way up. Right up to northern France. It's exactly the same ridiculous situations that are occurring. And nobody's learning anything from past experience, and not listening to independent volunteers and learning from their experience.
And I think that's a lot of why they don't want independent volunteers as well, because we're watching them. And they
absolutely.
hate that, because they've always had, when they go to other countries, they've always had carte blanche to do what they want, because they've got their big cars and
they're gods. They can do
the
it,
situation
no one
you just
watches
described
them.
with the volunteers saying, there's an empty tent there and it's raining. I can see a solution here. And the guy's
but
not got authority to do it.
The bureaucracy's even down
There's
that
no-
low.
no
That's
flexibility.
where they've just landed here, from Turkey here, and they're experiencing that. Fast forward to Dunkirk. I happened to call in at Dunkirk. I've been down in Greece. I was on my way home, and I stopped in Belgium, and then I called in at Dunkirk camp. Just by pure chance, there was a family, a mother, two beautiful little girls, 6 and 8, and dad. The mum was 7 months pregnant, suffering from hypertension. They weren't allowed into Dunkirk camp because they didn't have wristbands. The guys that were trying to sort it out, it was pouring with rain. The woman is 7 months pregnant, got hypertension. There's an empty porter cabin that they've taken chairs out of for the mother to sit down outside in the rain. You know, it's just exactly the same. The treatment is
We've had the same
the whole way
yeah,
along.
We've just had the same thing, because now, after the snow here, the UNHCR and the Greek government, who are still blaming each other and not taking responsibility for any of the mess, suddenly setting people free on the mainland. So they're giving them permission to leave. One, they're separating families, which is another story. But these people are so eager to move on and so afraid that someone will slam the door shut again, they leave immediately.
Yeah.
Well, we had a story a few weeks ago of an entire family, 2 pregnant women, some kids, stuff, you know, extended family, leaving the island without actually discussing it with the UNHCR. They'd been given their paper to travel, but hadn't thought that they had to, like, get permission to go somewhere else. So they roll up at a refugee camp thinking that a refugee camp is actually for refugees, and asked to come in, and they're told, no, you can't come in, your papers don't, you need a specific permission and a transfer paper from the UNHCR. Go back to Lesbos and get it.
It's just insane.
They spent the night on the side of the road, outside of the gates of the refugee camp, trying to get in.
Yeah.
And that's the stupidity that surrounds this whole thing. Now we've got... They've reduced the population on the island by, I guess, 2,500 since the January.
Quite a lot in
January.
January.
2,500, 3,000 people.
How have they reduced it?
They've set them free on the mainland.
On the mainland. A lot of them on the streets. And the other thing here is, just recently, I mean, you know, we've heard the odd story now and then over the last year or so, but there seems to be a lot of sending people without their brothers and now their sisters, without their sons and daughters, and you know, they're splitting families.
Yeah.
And that, to me, I mean, we've always had a rule from here, even on the boats, keep the families together. Whatever you do, you must keep the families together. And now we're getting this in the last few weeks. It's been quite a lot. Families have been, the mothers allowed to go. I mean, even the other day, they're trying to put a guy up for deportation completely with his wife left here. She's got permission to stay. He hasn't.
I have 2 crazy stories about this that I just heard this week. One, an Algerian woman that's pregnant, whose husband's been deported to Turkey. And one of the last protests that happened in Moria was due to the fact that there's a family, a wife and a husband and 2 kids. The wife and the youngest child has been given the card to go to the mainland, given the other 2 have been rejected.
Yeah.
How can you split a family?
Yeah, but they seem to be doing it more and more and more. It seems to be becoming the norm to do it. Why? Deliberately. This is deliberate. By maybe one of the...
Yeah, I mean, whoever's made that decision to grant the mum and the one child has obviously got all of the information in front of them.
Yeah.
They know that there are 2 children and a husband.
Yeah, but they only see that they're vulnerable, and that wouldn't do to send them back because it looks bad publicity-wise, not because they actually care. But the guy is an adult, and yeah, he'd be fine. Send him back. But you get it even on the smaller. If they can't even get inside Greece families reunited, they know where these people are. There was a woman the other day, Syrian woman, on her own with her 2 sons. 2 sons are in their 20s.
Yep.
She was given permission to go to Athens and told she had to go to Athens, but not her sons. Now, she has no husband. In any culture, you expect to stay with your family, but in Syrian and Arabic culture, they need their men with them. That's the way the system works.
The exploitation that happens for single women travelling is completely insane.
It's just bizarre. So she tried to smuggle. I mean, I laughed, but it's not funny. She actually had one of the sons in her suitcase, in a wheel-on suitcase, and they found him going onto the ferry, and she was arrested, and so were the 2 boys.
Yep.
But why would you do that? I mean, we've got 2 now. Basil. He's here. He's been here over a year. He came at the end of March 2016. Syrian boy. His brother came shortly afterwards to join him, and he's on Chios. So the smuggler sent them to a different island.
Yep.
So they are so close and yet so far. And why is it a challenge to move one from one place to the other so you can keep the families together? All the salaries that the UNHCR are taking, and the Red Cross, I mean, well, they're not even doing anything because their
They
job
are.
was
I've been told they give out blankets. The Red Cross.
awesome.
Yeah. So I asked them what they were doing on the island, what they've done in the
When
last
there's
year.
no-
I have a funny story that the UNHCR led NFI meeting regarding blankets. So in winter, we transported a truckload. There was a call out for sleeping bags and blankets on Lesbos. We brought a truckload of sleeping bags and we gave them to Eurorelief. And when we were in the meeting, just telling them that, hey, we've come with lots of warm clothes, it's still cold, we want to distribute, we've been waiting, like, without any solution for a month, winter is over, like, why are you stopping this distribution? And we were just explaining what we did, and that we brought blankets and we gave them to Eurorelief, and there was this big uproar from MDM and UNHCR saying, why is Eurorelief distributing sleeping bags and blankets? What the heck? Like, that is not okay. That's MDM's job. They deal with the new arrivals. I'm sorry, people have been here for over a year. They might need a second sleeping bag in that time. It's not enough to give a new arrival a sleeping bag and think you finished the problem. And it was just like we were there. It was just after the deaths in Moria, and it sounded like the camp was a paradise. There was nothing going wrong. In the crux of it, yeah, we gave out an extra 4,000 or something blankets. Like, we had volunteers from everywhere.
That's one each, though,
Yeah.
to each refugee, because there was 4,000 refugees
It's
in there.
completely...
We
So
had
one
people
blanket.
sleeping in -5 degrees with no heating,
Yep.
in little flimsy tents with a bit of nylon between them in the elements, and people were dying. You know, I mean, we were going down there, and they said they were started winterising. They said that they had a meeting about winterising in January.
Yep.
You know, basically this is year 3 winter.
Yep.
You know,
Fuck.
and they're just
Like,
talking
oh, look.
about winterising now. They didn't
It's
know
just
winter was coming.
always so
You know.
Like, oh
delayed.
shit,
It's
it's winter again. Who
just-
knew that was going to happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, the DRC
Shit, you know,
guy
who knew
said-
winter? As you say, who knew winter's going to come every year?
And
You
you,
know.
we all saw the photos.
No, but that's the
of-
mentality
yeah.
of these
It is.
people.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
But-
all,
Yeah, sorry.
No, you go.
Go on. Sorry.
We all saw them walking in Crocs in the middle
Yeah,
of winter.
yeah, we did. Yeah.
And we brought that up with the Danish Red Cross. We were just like, guys, come on, they're in Crocs. It's winter. It's cold. Oh no. Like, I guarantee you, they have shoes. They just don't want to get their good shoes
I had the
wet.
same
We had the
story.
same story, but different. The answer was different. Yeah.
Well, it was similar, you
Yeah.
know, and there's guys in flip-flops. There was
Yeah.
one guy in there, he was wearing pink women's tights and a pair of shorts and some flip-flops. And I'm like, well, you know, fashion could be a thing. But I brought it up with some officials later, and they said, no, he has clothes. They all have
They
clothes.
just don't want to wear them.
They don't want to wear them.
You know, so it's
I
minus
know.
5
They
degrees,
choose-
snow on the ground.
Flip flops and pink fucking
Yeah.
tights.
They
because
choose not to.
It's
Yeah.
just.
I mean, he might have liked the pink tights, but the flip-flops, it was freezing.
Let me shut this one down because it's going on a bit, and we'll open up another one. I'll shut this one down, and we'll open up another one. Yeah. Oops.
We could go on forever.
Yeah, I know, but it's nice to get it down
Yeah.
on video.